Hello everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips, the Thursday edition, the we wish it was Friday but it's not Friday yet edition. And this is me, your host, Anne, accompanied by, and occasionally surpassed by, Quindy, our disembodied hands on deck, John, our disembodied beard, and Justin, who's here in memory and thought and whatever. I have no idea whether Justin is current or past at this point. He's surpassed space-time. He's gone beyond, so I have no idea. And Kiki made clicky paw noises, but then disappeared. Hey, clicky paws. Baba. Nope. Kiki has noped out of the day, everybody. Oh, did I lie? Have you not noped? Hey, Baba. Yay! Yay! Thank you, you good girl. Oh, such a good girl. You all know it's slippery, slippery. Oh no. Oh, no teeth, no teeth. Thank you, good girl. Good girl. Yeah, good girl. I thought you were open. I'm glad you weren't open. She's such a silly puppus. Well, you get to meet her if you come to ReaperCon, Zachariah, which I assume you are, since you're like, I don't know, local-ish, right? Aren't you local-ish? Or are you no longer? I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know where your location in space-time is at this point. You're like Justin. Yes, yes. Oh, good. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Hi there. Hi there. Oh, you've got a bone? Yeah, you can sit and chew. That's good. That's good, Papa. She's just looking at me like, Mom? Yeah, that'd be cool, Fancy. I just plan for it. I always tell people, it's like if you sit and wish, nothing happens. But if you start putting aside a little bit of money every month, you'll get there. Even if you don't get there next year, you could get there the year after. I always find it helpful to do savings with like things totally out of sight. What I did actually, because I wanted my trip every year that I would like to go on but seldom can afford, is my Shiloh Shepherd Dog Club's national event, where I like to see all my dog friends. I like to see all the dogs in person. So what I did is I set up a bank account, but it's not visible on my app dashboard. So my bank account, it's like you can choose whether to show or to not show a given account. So I don't show my vacation account. I just have an automatic withdrawal that goes to it every, 2 weeks or whatever it is. Every time I get like my big paycheck or whatever, I feel like it. And then essentially now that account has over $1,000 in it. So now I can actually go to the Dog Nationals this year. So if you're like me and if you see the money, you tend to spend it. Or you find something that you must absolutely have with it, try that. Like I think most banks would have that function where you can just kind of move that account where you can't see it and then it just kind of exists. Yeah, right. So you're pre-budgeting, right. Yeah. So however you can do it, but like, if we see it, we tend to think it's available, right? And that's just a human thing. It's nothing wrong with it. But it's like life is about gaming your brain. And that's how I had to game my brain to like create an account that would sit there and store up money for me to do the things I would like to do as far as traveling goes, without me jeopardizing them and going, oh, I could take some money out of that vacation account and buy new bed sheets, stuff like that. Oh no, where'd he go? Oh no. Oh, nice. That's great, Fancy. Oh, if you do that, because I had several grand saved up by the time I did my book thing, and it made a big difference because you can afford more, right? You still have to be tight with your money, and you need to look at your expenditures. But yeah, it's cool. And then even if after a couple of years you decide, well, that's not really what my passion is anymore, you're still gonna have that seed money to like do whatever you want, what your next step is, right? So good for you. That's great. Once I get allergies, Quindy. Oh, and I need to thank you all for your resubs. Hold on. Allergies attack. Blah. News at 10. David makes fun of me for news at 10 because apparently in Seattle it's always news at 11 because they don't go to bed as early as us Midwesterners. So we had Turgent and Kaz and... One second. Yeah, this community is fantastic, Fancy, so. My advice for people like who want to do big things like this, big things that could like help the community, don't promise anything, but like just say, this is my idea. I'm going to make an honest shot at trying to make it work. And any help I can get or advice is really welcome. Like if you go into it with that attitude, that's the best attitude to have. Like, it's really tempting to say, ooh, I want to do this by X year, or ooh, I want to have it next year, or 2 years from now, and this is what I want to do, and this is it, and this is this. And it's like, nope, just don't do that. Just say, I've got my goals. This is what this big thing is what I hope to accomplish, and I'm just going to keep working toward that. So if you hear from me periodically, that's why. Like Ed was a master of that. He's like, never tell them when it's coming out, because then something catastrophic is going to happen, and we're going to miss the deadline, and everyone will be terribly disappointed. So if you must set a deadline, set it out so far that you know you can hit it, right? But oh no. Alrighty. So yeah. So Turgeon, Arrowiz, Turgeon for the wait. My screen. I'm challenged today. Sorry, everybody. Turgeon for 26 months and Arrow is for 43. Astonishingly good. Yeah. There's always stuff that happens, right? That totally derails our money saving what we wish we could do funds, you know. But having one that's out of sight, out of mind, that you just throw money into, then you have a pleasant surprise when you remember that it's there. And you're like, oh, I should check that. Ooh, look at all the money. That kind of thing, right? You know, it's fun. Hey there, Child of the Jago. Thank you for the Prime sub. And welcome. I haven't seen you before. I don't know if you're a Reaperite who's been around a while, but on different streams, or if you're new. But if you're new, welcome. I do. We haven't started painting yet because, you know, we also talk about life crap on occasion. And Kaz for 51 months. Thank you for the resub. Woohoo! Yay! Awesome. The project as it was presented to me was I was presented with a list of things Reaper would like me to accomplish after I came on board. And one of the list of things they wanted to accomplish was to help develop a paint line that could be a competitor to Vallejo, which was the only dropper bottle line out there at the time. And people were really liking dropper bottles, even with all their flaws. And so we just did it, man. We just did it. Like, there was no time frame. It was, and that's why I say, don't do a time frame. You should have steps. Like, you should always have, like, okay, this is my first small goal, and here is the first step that I need to execute on. And then you execute on that step, and you make your next small step. It should never feel overwhelming. You need to keep the bar low enough, and this is true in painting, too. If you're taking on a big project, or if you're trying to do something new that's intimidating, set small steps. Small step over. If the bar is low enough, it's easy for us to step over. And that may feel bad to you because setting a low bar is like a bad thing, you know, or whatever. No, it's not. If you set a high bar and it intimidates the heck out of you and you never do it, like, where have you gone then? So do set a low bar. Do set an easy step, an easy first step, a step that feels simple to you that you can accomplish, but that still makes progress towards your goal. So for me, it was, you know, go down to our paint supplier that we were working with and have them pull out buckets of paint for me to essentially experiment with. And I would do it there. I brought my brush, I brought a cup of water, I brought, you know, stuff, a palette, and they would shake it up, they would haul it open, I would take a little bit out, I would thin it, I would add an additive, I would see how it, you know, pooled or if it fell out of solution. And that essentially was my starter to the feel I wanted for Master Series. But that was the first step, right? And there was no deadline on this. There was just a let's make progress toward it. And I think that's the best attitude. When you have that freedom to do that, it's the best thing you can do because you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself. Whether it's if you're painting or you're doing another big project that's important to you, we already have enough pressure with our real jobs, right? We already have that you need to get this done yesterday. Don't do that to yourself when you're working on your passion project, whatever that passion project may be. Instead, make your goals and feel good about accomplishing them, but do not put a deadline on yourself so that you start to stress out and hate the project. Like, you just know it's going to happen. So don't do it. Don't do it. Maybe in your head you think next year, but right away, correct that in your head. Say, I'd like to do it next year, but you know what? It might take me a couple of years to do this. It might take me 3 or 5. And you know what? That's okay. We've waited this long. Yeah. The FOMO fund. Yep. That's awesome, Kurtiko. Hello, Agent Marvel. But yeah, it's so important, especially if you're doing like army painting, for example, with my Tyranids. I'm not setting a deadline. I'm not talking to anybody about playing the game. Because the minute I talk to somebody about playing the game, they're going to be like, let's do it next weekend. And I'm going to be like, yeah, no. So it's like, if I'm going to paint an army, I'm just going to have my next step. My next step is sit down and paint purple onto the shells of the Tyranids that I have assembled. Easy, right? Easy, relaxing thing that still lets me enjoy my hobby, but get closer to having finished models. So it's like, for once, kick the obsession with endless productivity and deadlines out of your mind and just enjoy the process. I mean, it's how you have to write a novel. How do you think you write a 120,000 word novel? It's like you just write the next scene, right? You do. And you just think of it that way. You don't think of it as, oh my God, I have to write 120,000 words, or your brain would die and you'd run away screaming. You just, you figure out what the next scene is. So, I mean, it's like eating the elephant one bite at a time. But that analogy, though good, is neglects to like say like it really is like just tackling that one step and putting your all into it, and then the next step. Oh, I think it's painting. I think that's my Soldier 76. That's Overwatch. That's the statue I painted. Overwatch is my favorite computer game. Though we've been playing more Diablo than Overwatch recently, but that's because David is Diablo obsessed, because Diablo is his favorite computer game. So every once in a while. But yeah, that's a 1 foot tall statue I painted, and that was also a Break It Into Achievable Small Goals project, because it's 12 inches tall, and I did hyper texture on the entire thing. So it was a lot of hours. It was 100 at least 120 hours of work, I think. Don't remember. It's all behind me now. But yeah, I had to do a lot of things to get that done. Oh, Karniko, I got a new bird. Only I didn't really get a new bird because I don't have the right food for her. But I think she was an Oriole. She was big and yellow, and if she'd been a guy, she would have been orange, but apparently the females are yellow. It was the only bird I could find that like matched like kind of what she looked like, because she looked like a giant like goldfinch. Like she was yellow all over, but she was big. She was so big that when she tried to land in my new little maple tree, it like sagged and she was like, eek! So we don't ever really have a good tree for her because she was big. So the lemon tree has a lot of really close vegetation that big birds probably aren't happy with. And then the maple tree is new and saggy, so, it's spindly. It feels a lot more like a willow than a maple right now. And I don't have, they love grape jelly, and they love nectar stuff, and I don't have any nectar feeders or anything around us, so. I don't actually do that scale normally, Fancy. And it really depends on the material. I actually am not a huge, Soldier was 1/6. I think 1/4 is too big for me. I like big, but it depends on what it is, but 1/4 is a lot, and so I don't know that I would really enjoy that. There were times when I was not enjoying painting Soldier. There were times when I was just like, this is a slog, and I just need to get through it. That's when David and I started talking, and I would send him work in progress pictures to help keep me motivated, which is another thing you can do. If you have a friend, you can work on the thing and send them an update. I'm gonna block in her leather. I want to use a red leather. I want to use ruddy leather. I think I'm even gonna add a little bit more red to it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to close the window just in case construction noises start up, though. That's a good reminder. There. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the mic is, like, my camera is using my camera's mic for some reason. I need to really get on figuring this out, but I'm really annoyed that it happened at all. That it's not recognizing my Yeti for whatever reason. So, thank you, Small Scottish Cat. I know he's my biggest fan. Okay, so we're going to get some ruddy leather. I have a couple of choices for making it more red. I can use oxide red. That's what it was built with. I can also use just a regular old red. So let's just pop this together. I'm going to start with 4 drops of ruddy leather, as I always start with 4 drops. Really need to order more ruddy leather. Really need to talk to Ron about getting more store credit for stream miniatures. 1 second. Because I think I have more ruddy leather somewhere, but I need to find it. Drunken Mermaid is, we do a different model every day. Drunken Mermaid was yesterday. Alright, I want a red. And it can be any red. It can be clear red, it can be heraldic red. It could be, let's use blood red, because it's a red red. Yes. Yeah, that is what I'm running into, Agent Marvel. I know that that's what's happening, but I'd need to stop and sit and troubleshoot it. And honestly, I haven't had a half second in any day. So I'm just living with it for now. So I'm going to put 1 big drop of this really, oh, didn't quite mix in, when you can just glance at it and see that it's still got fluid when you like start squeezing out of the bottles, because I haven't used blood red in a long time. But no, Fancy, you have to wait several days before Drunken Mermaid comes back around. It's always a 6 model rotation. We do 1 model every day, and then we work back around. Yeah, I'm not sure. You can write all you want. You won't get what you want. You're at the mercy of the internet and other people. It's just like, get used to it. Go get yourself a mermaid if you want one so bad. I have no sympathy. I have my structure and I'm sticking to it. I don't want to paint the same thing every day. All right, so I've got to drop a bright red into that leather there, and I'm going to grab my water. Less messing around, more actual questions and actual content. Often I see messing around like that as kind of like just a distraction. I guess we do have plenty of distractions during this stream. But yeah, for that one, meh, meh. I give that distraction a 3 out of 10. Paint chemistry distractions are the best distractions. They get 9 and 10 out of 10s. I'm going to start rating distractions we get off on now. All right. I thinned it a little much, I think. So that made it a little bit more red. And the reason that I wanted to make it a little more red, you can see that it's quite reddish now, is that we've got kind of a muted red, yellow, blue going on here. So just for funsies, I wanted to make that color just a bit more red and see how it translated. I did, I think, put a little bit too much water in it. I'm gonna add a little tiny touch more paint to it in order to get more coverage. No, not really. I kind of want to paint today. Tantrums, not riots. Yes. Oh, that's good to know, Warshadow. Luckily, there are no squid around here. You don't want to know my rating system. I'll take your word for that. But yeah, I'm really not interested in like, it was fun to break down that one 2D artist because we were talking about it in the context of miniatures. But otherwise, it's something that I would do on my Patreon, not on stream necessarily. Some people just aren't interested in it. All right, let's see here. It's fun to do it every once in a while, but really we don't. Though this stream is ideally about education. And for people to ask questions if they have issues with their painting. And I don't mind a bit of digression here and now, but today I'm kind of in the mood to get some colors down on this and see if this really reddish leather works. I'm going this way when I know that I probably should go really dark instead, but I'm going to see if I can make it work. Like, there's an easy rule about midtones and saturation in general, which is just that on a miniature, if you're going muted with any part of it, you should mute everything just a little bit, unless you're using accent colors. You can get away with putting a very bright color as an accent in a muted color scheme if it's small and repetitive. But in general, all my rules are in general rules that, you know, you can totally ignore as you get to a certain point in your painting. So one of the reasons that I would use this very reddish leather color is that this is technically a red, yellow, blue color scheme, with the gold being yellow and the cream being yellow, and then of course the blue dress. So if I add the reddish color scheme, if I add the reddish leather, it frees me up to do a different hair color if I want to do that triad. If I really wanted to just do the red, yellow, blue, and her skin is technically very, very pink as well. So we've got elements of everything. We could go for the red hair, but I may want to go blonde with her. Or I may want to go brown, I'm not sure. I'm just going to kind of explore whether I like this leather as is. I can always darken down portions of it. The other kind of annoying thing about this leather is that she does have runes or some sort of raised detail on her tooling on her belt. And I just really don't want to like put a bunch of gold in there, but it'll erase my leather color pretty effectively to do so. So I'm kind of thinking about what I'm going to do for that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Pendrake. I mean, muted colors really, like, you have to depend on light dark more. You know, you want to, when you're muting, you can add gray, or you can add a complement, or you can add black or white. Any of those things will mute the color, but they'll all give you different results. So you kind of have to think about what you're doing. If you really are bad with muted colors, then grab a piece of card or Bristol stock or index card and put your colors down on there to see if they feel good. Grayed out color schemes tend to like grade out everything else. So like when you're doing a gray green, you may also want to do like a gray blue and a gray brown. Tends to give that misty feel. If you try to mute a different way, sometimes it doesn't work. But it depends on how much you're muting it out. Like, it's only if it gets really gray that you want everything to kind of go grayish. But that's just like... Usually if you just swatch the colors out next to each other, you're going to be able to tell if one doesn't work. And it saves you repainting the miniature. It has a ribbon. I'll probably do red, but I'm not there yet. What was that, Fancy? I didn't get what you asked. Changing the color contrast for what? What are you talking about specifically? Oh. Oh, yeah. I nailed it. Like, it's really close now. I mean, it's just adding more gray and more magenta. Mostly more gray. It separates out if you leave it sit for a while, but it's a perfectly acceptable contrast paint when I shake it up. And it takes at least a full day to settle out, so win. I have to try it on some termagants, but I don't have any at that stage right now, so. We'll try it eventually. Might need to tune it a little darker, but I kind of like it where it is, so. Alright, and I hadn't decided about an interior color down here yet. We'll just kind of keep that at the ... stage. Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm kind of surprised people don't, but like I said, Games Workshop kind of hands you a fish, and like if you're in that ecosystem, then you take the fish and you use the fish, and you don't always realize, hey, I could change this fish. And this is true of any hobby. You know, there may be a bunch of ways to alter a particular technique, but if you're not in that mindset where you like to experiment and understand that you can, and it's perfectly okay. I mean, the big problem with most contrast paints is you wouldn't be able to do it because they're too dark. But because that blue is so light, it gave me a lot of room to work it. I don't think that there's any other color, maybe the yellows, but the yellows are not real clear yellows, so I think with a lot of other contrast colors you would get in trouble. But for that one, I was able to do it because I had the correct color for my shading, and it happened to be light enough to do it. I suspect most GW people, customers, who use contrast, are not interested in doctoring them at all. They're purposefully moving toward that line because they want it as it is, straight out of the bottle, done. Only weirdos like me like to do it a little different. So yeah, so really red leather. So we're gonna shade this with a darker color. I think I'm going to use Rogue Shadow because it's essentially a red liner, and I'm going to mix a little bit of my leather color into it. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to take a couple drops of the Rogue Shadow, add a little bit of this Ruddy Leather Blood Red mix that we've got, and it should go to kind of a red-black. Yeah, but I like the fishing analogy. The dish one works too. There we go. And when I thin that, where's my thinning thing there? I mean, ideally, when you have interference powder, you just mix it with a clear paint, not one that already has flake in it. You can overload flake, Cornico, to the point where you get more of a paste. So, like, it would be better to mix them with a color that's not already metallic, in my opinion. You actually might want I mean, you can make your own using like a sealer and a bit of another color and interference paint. I mean, you could mess around with that. Mediums and sealers tend to be essentially paint bases. They're just used, you know, as finishing coats or additives, but they still have the resins in them. You can mess around with that if you want to make something from the ground up using a clear. So the color that I got after all that, a couple brushfuls of this plus the Rogue Liner, is a very dark reddish brown. It's a lot like black and brown. It's a little bit different. And I want to do some shading down the middle of this. Down the side a little. And the wrinkles across the top. That takes it down a little bit. Yeah, I mean, the big thing with the interference is it's going to be hard to build up an effect on a very pale color unless those powders are made to work on pale colors. A lot of them may work better on darks. I'm not sure because, you know, like just like the Turbo Dark ones have colors that work better over white, but a lot of them work better over dark or black. You just have to experiment a bit. But yeah, I wouldn't add stuff to something already with flake in it, because there is a limited load you can put on those things before you end up with just too thick, gunky paste. And if you thin it, you've probably compromised it, because, you know, you've got a limited pigment load, you've got all that. You essentially have more flake and water than you have resin to hold things together at that point. I would use a medium or a... I mean, a sealer kind of makes sense as you're putting it over the top of what you've got, and you also you get with those flakes, you tend to want a very transparent base, and so gloss sealers tend to be the strongest and most transparent. And you probably would want a gloss anyway, because anytime you have a metallic or a shiny flake paint, you tend to want... I'm going to line a bit here. Over chrome. Yeah. Yeah, using it over, but she was talking about mixing it in crows, and she was specifically saying she was dealing with the interference powders rather than color shift paint. But yeah, that's interesting that you could do it over chrome and get a shine. I mean, it makes sense that it would look kind of funky, would give you some interesting effects. I mean, color shift paint, like I said, there's a lot, like just using it as they direct is one way, but there's also other ways to use it, and you might be able to get some interesting effects. Glitter, I mean, that was David's complaint with my NIDS, is that he felt that the glittery effect of the color shift just blew out everything. But I didn't necessarily agree. He just doesn't like glittery metallics in general, so. I want some liner, so I'm going to grab my Pure Rogue Shadow and line around all these little leather things. He's fine. No, we're playing Diablo. David goes through cycles, like many painters do when they have real jobs and like real free time. GD isn't for a long time. He already had a couple of projects that were started that didn't get done for this past Golden Demon, so... He's playing around with a couple of things, but he hasn't, like, he warned me that Diablo was going to take over his life completely when it released, so, and that's pretty much been it. I think you can assume that Diablo is going to be taking priority for the foreseeable future. He's also a much faster painter than I am, so he doesn't have to start something a year in advance to get it done, whereas I do. Yeah, that's what I like doing, is color shift over non-metallic. Daffodweir. Just buy regular plastic spoons and spray them with black primer, Pendrake. You'll all get bronzes if we do that. David will give everybody the bronze for glitter or certificate. Nice try, but no medal. It's just his personal preference. That's fair. We all have little things that we really don't like. I really don't like galaxy cloaks. The only time I like galaxy cloaks or galaxy effects is if they actually make sense, which they almost never do. So if you really want to get a meh from me, do a galaxy cloak on something where it doesn't make sense. Things where it does make sense would be celestial wizards or celestial dragons. Something that at least makes sense to have a galaxy cloak on. Then I'll be like, oh, cool galaxy cloak. But that tends not to work out that way. It tends to be, this is my cool wizard. Look, he's got a galaxy cloak because magic. And I'm like, oh. But that's my personal preference. You need not follow my personal preference. Oh, yeah, sample sticks, Korniko. That makes sense. I mean, it's a cool effect, Quindy, and when it first came out, everybody was doing it. Like, everybody was like, oh my god, that's so cool, and everybody wanted to do it on a model. I think it was Brett DeWald who did it on his Void Reaper Space Marines, that he had a whole army that won Golden Demon pretty much year by year. So yeah, I mean, it's a cool effect, and it's neat, and it's something to learn to have it in your wheelhouse if you want to try it, by all means. So it's just like, sometimes people do it and it's just gratuitous. And I'm just like, why? 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 Yeah, but David has a very healthy attitude toward miniature painting, in that if he wants to play computer games instead, even if there's a competition coming up, he's going to play computer games. He's not going to give himself a lot of pressure or stress. And I think a lot of us could take a good example from that. He's like, if I get it done, I get it done. If I don't get it done, I don't get it done. That's it. If he really wants to get it done, he'll work hard on it for like many nights in a row to get it done. But he usually has a really, unlike most people, including me, he usually has a really good idea of how long a given project will take him. I don't know what, that must be his superpower. Like, wouldn't we all like that superpower? Like, that's a very rare superpower for humans. Oh, that's a little bit too much. Blurfed it. There we go. Very Pinterest. Yes, it's true. Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're a proud 15-year-old, and that's okay. That's okay. Yes, that's a galaxy cloak, Agent Marvel. It's not a complicated technique. It's one of those techniques that's deceptively simple, but gets you oohs and ahs, because when people don't know how to do it, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's why you do it, the galaxy cloak, really. Just going to line a bit around this belt, make sure that I've got my demarcations. But yeah, it's cool, just like any like interesting freehand thing can be cool. But yeah. David now makes sure that if there's a Galaxy cloak that he sees on Instagram or Putty and Paint, that he shows me. But it's not medieval. It's magic, Pendrake. I don't think you can do that. I mean, sure, you're not going to put it on a historical model, but when it comes to fantasy, everything's fair. I mean, you could just as easily say, well, then it's not a galaxy. It's a magical effect. Whee! Just happens to strongly resemble a galaxy cloak. Yeah, the historical thing. I know a lot of historical painters who are very irritated by some of the things like that, and I'm just like, dude, magic. And they're just like, that's why I hate fantasy. And I'm like, all right, to each their own. It's fair. I bet Kaha also has done a galaxy cloak. Like that, but awesome, yes. You're right. Yes, Gerniko, yes. Yes. Roll for persuasion. Yep. Pendrake can have his opinions. All the historical guys can have their opinions. It's all good. If they don't like it, they don't like it. Like, it's fair. If they think it's inaccurate and that's part of why they detest it, I'm good with that. You can detest it all you want. David can detest my glitter Tyranids, and I'm still going to do them. Because what other people think of you and your projects that you love is none of your business. Who cares? I'm gonna quote my old gym teacher to you, the one that actually told me that girls belonged in the gym as much as guys did, and his favorite thing to say to over like dramatic teenagers was, what other people say or think about you is none of your business. Don't even take note. The exception is if you are so outside of social norms that it is actually hurting you, in which case please do listen a little bit. But in general, we all worry way too much about other people's perceptions. I want to do my glitter Tyranids. I'm going to do my glitter Tyranids. There's nobody else. You can tell me you don't like them. That's fine. They'll eat your face anyway. Yeah. You know, there's griefing and then where it just goes overboard, death. I think we're fine. Yeah, I like glowy runes. I mean, I've done those, obviously. It's not a historically accurate Tyranid. Can you produce proof of that? Yeah. Yeah, historically accurate Tyranids in little galaxy cloaks. Oh my god. It would be so cute. I would laugh at that army. I would give that army 5 thumbs up, and I don't have 5 thumbs. Because silliness gets my thumbs up, and extreme silliness gets extreme thumbs up. I like silly, and I cannot lie. All right, so you got some lining around all of that just to make those little things stand out a little more. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to mix up. No, I want to get lining around these laces on the side of the boot. I want to get an orange highlight mixed up. So we're going to, with reddish leather, you're almost always going orangey with your highlights. And that is my secret plan, everybody, because that enables me to introduce a complementary color to the blue. Yeah. Makes sense that they could eat crystals. Maybe the crystals had organic matter trapped in it and they had to get to it. I mean, Nids can adapt to eat anything they need to eat, really. Just because we like to eat Space Marines because they're crunchy on the outside and chewy on the inside, you know, not all Nids need to do that. Let's see. So we could use burnt orange or we can use orange brown for this. You could also just add a little bit of a normal, quote-unquote, orange, like Sunrise or Volcanic or Cavalier. And this will work. You need to add white with it, but it will work. Oh, what do I feel like? Sunrise. Yeah, Sunrise. Yeah. Because there's already brown in my reddish leather, so I can get away with an orange. If you are using something that's really red and has a lot less brown in it, then don't go with this. Go with more of an orange brown, because you need that muted highlight to keep it from looking like shiny modern plastic leather. I don't know. I kind of feel like nougat, because they seem kind of chewy, right? Fussball. Yeah, that's good. Foosball. Fussball. That's great. My Overwatch esports are changing forever next year, because probably all the coaches or all the owners are going to vote to dissolve the league this year, because the original overblown estimations of how much money esports was going to make proved to be so much smoke and mirrors. No surprise. When somebody presents you with like a report that says your industry could grow by $120 million, but can't explain to you how exactly you monetize it, kind of give yourself a question mark. But anyway, so next year, most likely there will be no Overwatch League, and there will be competitive Overwatch esports, but we don't know what form they will take. So I'm going to be sad. Much as the league had problems, I enjoyed watching it. It's still on now. They're finishing up the last season. I'm just hoping that the team I hate doesn't win the grand finals, but it is very likely that they will, so. There we go. Sorry, I had to unplug my orange. Ah. Denim wearing jean stealers. Alrighty, so I've got that big blob of orange in there, along with a couple big brushfuls of my red-brown. And just the orange isn't going to do much, so you do need to add a little bit of an off-white or white. Let's add a little bit of Cairn Stone, which is even a little gray, but any white will do, really. And I'm just going to get that in there. That's going to lighten it up a little bit and give us an idea of how much more orangey we need to get. I think we need a little bit more orange in there. The thing is that Sunrise doesn't have really hardly any white in it. It's a very, very bright, vibrant orange. And what tiny bit of white it does have in there is just to aid with coverage. So it isn't going to lighten that red leather color very much. There we go. That's nice. I like that. Maybe a little bit more vibrant. That's close. It's close. One more. Foosball, yes. I like fussball, though. Oh, no, Quindy. Why do I mix them inside of here, NetJam? Because I like this palette better. With acrylic paint, you can't really do the palette Bob Ross uses because he's using oil paint, which is going to stay wet forever. So using this wet palettes, which are the palette that miniature painters most often use these days, aren't really happy for me. I find that I don't have very much control. There's the color so you guys can see it. So that's the color for my leather highlight, my first one. I can't control the consistency as much, and I like to have control over my paint consistency. So although I can use a wet palette, and I have used one, I always just reach over to get Dude and show Dude off. So this was painted with a wet palette, pulling the colors together, as you say. So this was a class model that I haven't finished, which is why the sweater isn't done. But this was painted with a wet palette, so I can do it. I just don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy the having to play around. Every brush full of paint is different at that point, and I tend to like consistency and control in my painting. So I also am kind of happy, to be honest, that at least somebody out there is showing people how to use a well palette, because it's not actually as easy as you think it is. Because there's definitely the key is to put more paint into it, not less. So at least there's somebody out there still using this. I recommend that new painters try both, though, because some people are going to gravitate to the wet palette, like my husband does. He does wet palette with everything. He gets annoyed with well palette, so. Ceramic palette keeps the paint wet. It keeps the paint wet at the right consistency for longer. A wet palette will keep the paint wet, but it will not keep it at a standard consistency for any length of time. Since I did add a paint with white in it, this is going to cover pretty well. It's getting a little more transparent though, so I can probably highlight with this. You want to see some transparency if you don't want big blotchy brush strokes. But yeah, so you've got a couple different palette options. And there are other ones, NetJam. There are silicone palettes that look like this, and there are, some people use a combination of wet and well palette. And the wet palettes have all different kinds of papers and, different stuff. So it's just, how you're going to paint. And it used to be that well palettes were the main used palette, and then well palettes, and then wet palettes really got a lot of usage, especially with a lot of very high profile European painters who like the mix on the fly thing. They're more comfortable with kind of a fine art style. So then that took off, because if you've got a bunch of really good painters out there, all of whom are using the wet palette, you're going to have a lot of people just getting into the wet palette. But when you're starting out with miniature painting, paint consistency is a huge thing in this hobby. Like learning what kind of consistency you want for various effects is really huge to getting the miniature to look the way you want it to. And so if you are trying to develop a sense of paint consistency, you'll probably do so faster if you're working with a well palette, because it lets you control that consistency. Whereas with the wet, you are really mixing it every time. You're mixing it a different way. And it can be hard for you to get that kind of in your gut understanding of this is the paint consistency I need for this technique. So that's why I try to tell people use both. And sometimes it pays, even if you like the wet palette a lot, it pays to use the well palette until you can get a sense of how thin do I want my paint for X technique, or how thick. And then once you have that, just go to the wet palette and just use it from then on. So we've got some boot. Das Boot. There we go. I feel like I'm like a little bit out of, where's my focal point? Kind of there. So I'm just adding in that orangey highlight to kind of pick up the leather a bit. I'm going to go up a stage lighter with it as well. Yeah. A lot of people, I think, go back and forth. Yeah. No substitute for really making time to paint. You can watch a lot, but in order to really understand and get much from it, you must practice. It's just a thing with the arts and creative things in general. One could say it's a thing with everything. You can only watch so many videos before you actually have to put a brush on something to get better. You'll understand a lot more from watching those videos, probably. Like when things happen, you'll kind of understand why. So I'm highlighting to get these folds in the boot to come out too. It's going to be a lot harder to highlight here because you see all these little runes and stuff that are in here. I haven't decided how I want to highlight them yet. If I do decide to make them gold, then I need to do my highlights generally and shadows behind all that texture. So I've pretty much got to bring up my highlights kind of toward the middle and bottom here. I have my shadow up top. And I just need to bring up. There's not a lot of room to highlight in here. But if I do my shadow midtone highlight behind all this rune work, then when I start to do and highlight it, if I do decide to make all these little runes like gold or a different color, then at least I'll have my leather more or less blocked out correctly behind it. Thanks, Quindy. I'm glad you think so. Yeah, I get tempted to go back to canvas every once in a while. I could do canvas so much better now than I did in art school. Now that I understand so much more about light and color and everything. But it's just not in my cards right now. I always joked that when I retired was when I was going to go and try to be a famous wildlife artist. Like every decade I kind of change my focus. But right now we're in the decade of the writer. So for Anne, this is the decade of the writer. So I have to give it at least 10 years of intensive trying to see where I can get it as a writer first. And it's not like I ever drop any of my decade things. Like I had a decade of the dog too, and I'm still doing dog stuff. So it's not like I'm going to stop writing after a decade. It's just like this is my decade to make it my main focus and push. And then we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it'll be the last decade. Or maybe when I retire, I will decide to go into wildlife art. Who knows? It is not pinned in my Discord. It is because I'm a very silly person. Very, very silly person. It is in the I think it's in the books section, but I didn't pin it. I'm a fail. Fail at advertising. Oh noes. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited, you can wait until book 2 comes out, and then book 1 becomes 99 cents for a week. So you really can't have an excuse at that point. Book 1, it becomes 99 cents. Nobody has an excuse anymore. All right, I'm going to push that over. Yeah, silicone. Yep. I mentioned that, Pendrake, actually, just a little bit. I mentioned that there was a... Yeah, that somebody's been really... Yeah, it's like somebody else was talking about it. I think it was Valandar yesterday who mentioned that. I don't remember. But, yeah, somebody else mentioned that as well, that particular type of palette, the new silicone one. People have been thinking about doing that for a while. I mentioned, I mean, it's definitely, it can be good, sure. And if it's cheap, why not? I'm going to go to a pale yellow here, maybe blonde hair. Yeah, or palomino gold. No, it's not light enough. Where's my blonde hair? Blonde hair. There. I'm going to go to blonde hair for another highlight, to mix another highlight for this leather. Quindy, exactly. And sometimes people will like it and it'll stick around, and somebody will market it as the new improved, even better version of the $1 palette for $19.99. I mean, it's just going to happen. Oh, peoples. It's not like the palette will change your life, but if you really hate cleaning palettes, then... and if you find that you tend to just sit and let the paint dry in yours because you forget to clean it because you haven't established a regular cleaning habit, well, yeah, try the silicone one. I'm going lighter and more golden. I don't want to go too light with the leather because I don't want it to be... Well, yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, these are portable too, Pendrake. It's just like... I mean, I sandwich it between like 2 pieces of cardboard in a backpack. It works just fine. wrap it up or wrap it in bubble wrap with a piece of tape so that if it hits ground, it doesn't like chip. But yeah, I mean, it's not like you can't stuff any, really. Your wet palette is actually your least portable if it's wet. Because you've got to squeeze out the sponge and probably put it in a Ziploc bag. But even then, it's portable. Slapshot is perfectly feasible for gaming models. Absolutely perfectly feasible. It might even be feasible for a start to more of a display model. It just really depends. I mean, it's really just like sketch style with overcode, right? It's just quick. Really, honestly, if it gets people to enjoy painting who might not otherwise enjoy painting, I'm all for it. Seems like there are a lot of gamers using it to do army stuff, and that's good. Because, I mean, a lot of the gamers I knew really didn't like painting. They liked constructing the models and putting them together, but they didn't like actually putting color on the model. So if Slapshot lets them like it, then good. And if they like that name, then good. Galaxy colors, Quindy. Yep. It's a catchy name, the Slapchop. I can see why people grabbed it onto it. It's easy to remember. I'm just doing a little bit of highlighting on the very edges of the top now. Just to bring that up, I'm going to get this palette out of the way because it does bleach out the camera a little bit. And then I'm going to get those creases on top of the boot. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and monsters certainly can be super fast, like, especially when you need just a bunch of goblins or lizard men or bugbears or whatever. Spend your time on your recurring villain, if you have a recurring villain. Although parties like to murder hobo recurring villains and make them non-recurring. Need a little bit more red and orange here on the bottom. A bit more blending. I need to go to the bird store this weekend, Kerniko, because those goldfinches, the goldfinches are such piggies, they're eating me out of seed super fast. My thistle feeder. So I did see the funniest thing last night. They're so pretty, yes. Oh, it's named after a kitchen gadget. 4 sets, wow. Yeah, I don't have any cardinals around here. But I saw the funny thing, and some of you will be horrified because you do not like rodents, and I'm not a big fan of rodents, but last night when I glanced out at the patio, and I saw the thistle feeder wobble. And I was like, So I look, and there's this little mouse that has essentially crept off of a leafy branch. You can still see the branch move. And plopped down on top of the thistle feeder so that it can crawl down the side and try to nibble at the nuts. It was a very, very inventive mouse. I was impressed. I did trim back some of the leaves from around the feeder, but it can still get down the hanger, you know, the feeder hanger. But, you know, it's just a mouse, and the level of food did not go down appreciably between last night and the morning, because it was just a tiny mouse, and it was just not going to eat that much seed. So I was like, all right. And it's not like you can fit a ton of mice on that feeder at once. So I'm like, all right, I'll let you have your win, mouse. I'll let you have your win. Oh, I need to remember to highlight all these guys back here. Oh, no. Yeah, except that if you're going to have bird feeders, you're pretty much going to have rodents, crows. I have very few rodents, and I feel pretty fortunate on that. I stick Kiki on the rats. The ratties have almost completely given up at this point because since I sit in front of that window all day. But I'm also like thinking, you know, a lot of seed does go on the ground, and although the juncos and other ground feeding birds do get a bunch of it, there's stuff left over. And honestly, if the rats clean it up and the mices, then I'm kind of okay with that. I don't have any squirrels eating it. The squirrels have apparently decided that since Kiki moved in, they're like, nope. I don't see them in the yard anymore. I do not see squirrels in the yard ever. I sometimes see them on the fence, but never in the yard. Kiki was an instant nope for the squirrels. They're like, there are other yards for us to invade that do not have giant wolf dogs. Because Kiki probably looks like a coyote or a wolf to them. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely going through it like in like I would say about 6 weeks. Now that I have, since the goldfinches moved in a few weeks ago, I've gone through like 2/3 of the bag that I got. That's an interesting tip though. Thanks, Kroniko. I think mice are cute too. I don't mind them. As long as they're not in the house, and we've rodent-proofed our house. I don't mind if they do acrobatics to get on top of the thistle feeder. It's all right. Alrighty. That's about good. Yeah, I guess I'll stick with that highlight. I don't need a lot, and I don't know that I want it to be brighter. If you highlight up to a certain point, it'll start to make things look shiny. I don't necessarily want that back here. I just want the details to come out. Oh no, Kroniko. Yeah, I have a squirrel buster, so they weren't getting up on that sucker. In fact, there was one day, I think I forgot to tell you about this one, Kroniko. This is super funny, because I do have a squirrel buster, and they essentially, if too much weight sits on them, they close, and that's how they essentially close themselves to squirrels. And the sides are super slick. So one day, I don't know what happened, but all the house finches decided to land on the feeder. I look outside, and there's like all these finches sitting on the feeder, and none of them are eating. And then I look a little closer, and the weight of all like 6 or 7 of the buggers was just enough to just like half close the ports so nobody could eat. And they were sitting here squawking because they were like, hey, where's our food? And there were just too many of them. I just thought it was funny. It's like I get so many goldfinches that the feeder is almost like covered with them now, that thistle feeder. Maybe I should have gotten the bigger one, except then they just eat seed faster. But there will always be like at least one goldfinch like kind of perched on the top where it can't get any food, and if the food has been eaten halfway down, there's like inevitably 1 or 2 that are on the top just yelling at the top of their lungs because they can't get to the food. Oh my gosh. It's like little kids, little kid birds. Oh yeah, Trash? Cool. I do enjoy them. Like, even though I see a rat or a mouse every once in a while. I knew the rats and mice were around anyway. I'd always see them on the fences. Just kind of using the fences as highways to get through our neighborhood. So I knew they were around. And, you know, nothing's going to take that away. They've got plenty to live on in this neighborhood. But yeah, otherwise I really enjoy watching the birds. Every time I get a new one, I'm all excited. New kind. I am kind of thinking about getting a nectar feeder. Not so much for now because nectar is really plentiful right now, but for later. Ooh, and David and I are thinking about planting white clover in our lawn. next year. I think we're going to do it. Going half and half grass and white clover. Oh, yep, have fun. Have fun, ArrowWiz. Enjoy your camping trip. Oh, 6 goldfinches equals 1 squirrel. Actually, the squirrel is even heavier than... A squirrel would actually close it entirely. And you can set the weight on the Squirrel Buster, too, as to how much weight, roughly, it lets on. I've got it on a medium setting right now. Technically, one little mouse could sit on the Squirrel Buster and just eat. If they figured out how to get down there. But the sides are really slick, and it's 18 inches away from anything else. So it kind of keeps them away. The Squirrel Buster, pretty effective, actually. Like, there's still seed that gets thrown out by the birds that falls on the ground, and then the rodents get it there, but that's fine. I'm kind of sad we don't have chipmunks here, because I always really loved chipmunks. We had them in Wisconsin. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did have a bunch of clover, but I think our lawn service, like, hit them with weed killer, and the clover, like, died. So I'm going to have a stern... I need to have a stern talking to with our lawn service anyway. About some things that they did that I want them not to do again, so... Which is fine. They probably figure everybody wants everything perfectly manicured, but I was actually trying to train our maple tree to grow back along the top of our bike shed, so... I'm going to tell them not to trim it. I'll trim it. Alrighty. Pretty good. I need some more highlights on these. If I can see, I've got like the leather highlights on the tops of these guys, but I haven't hit that one yet. But yeah. Yeah, because the thing is they're impervious to dog pee, Curtico. Because Kiki makes spots. We use the hose after she goes, and that actually has helped a lot, but it would be nice to have a lawn that was more or less impervious to dog pee. And then if the grass died, like the clover would just move in. And it would attract bees, but it also attracts butterflies. And I'm all for that. All right, so we got just a little bit of highlight here, helps bring out the details on these leather straps. Yeah, so I mean, really looking at the detriments of clover, there were very few, and it mostly seemed good because our lawn is really compacted, and clover would help loosen up the soil. So I think it's only a win. The biggest downside is I can't seed it until spring, so we're gonna have to live with our current lawn for a little bit longer. There. All right, so that's nice and tight. We've got the orange highlights on the leather, which is nice. It works great with the blue. We have a fair number of people in our neighborhood who have wilder lawns, who don't go for the manicured. Mostly because, you know, we're often in a drought warning here, and so... But it's cool. But yeah, it's less work, less mowing, less water, less maintenance, and so David's all for it. Okay, cool. So we've got our leather figured out, and this has worked out to being a nice warm brown. It's definitely got some reddish tones to it, but it doesn't detract from the red in the skin. The orange highlights help and set off the blue, and it's really a nice, pleasing, warm color. Once we get the gold in, it should look really good. And it's still, with the shadows, carries as a fairly dark leather, which I wanted. So, oh, nice. Yeah, we don't hang out in our backyard a lot other than to take Kiki back there and play Frisbee here and there. So bees really wouldn't be a big factor for us. Alrighty. So yeah, that adds a bit of warmth. to the model as well. It actually makes me more tempted to give her brunette hair instead of blonde, because I've got enough yellow and gold, I think, on here, and I think I'm headed now toward more of a warm brunette, dark brunette color for her hair. I don't think I want a chestnut color for her hair. That would be reddish. I don't think I want to go with a reddish brown. I think I want to go a little bit away from that for her hair. But yeah, so that's an example of how you can push like ruddy leather more red if you want to. And just mix up various things to highlight it with that work off of it, and just use a little bit of that with your mix, your first mix, so that you're giving them something in common. You can really highlight or shade almost any color with any other color as long as there's a stage between them. Sometimes it'll look weird if you choose weird colors, but yeah. So there we are. And yeah, well, we're kind of early, although I went late for the last 2 days. Maybe I should just take off early today. What do you think, Quindy? I mean, I've been doing like 1/4 after, 20 after. Kiki's been getting her walk super late, and I've got a lot to do today. So I may just kind of like peter out here. Any questions? Any painting questions, you guys, before I run away? Because yeah, I have to get my paint along videos shot today, and yesterday was a total. Don't you hate it when like you get, like I tried to book hotels yesterday. Okay, I should tell you guys about my meltdown yesterday. So I'm trying to book hotels for the trip to ReaperCon, and I have to make sure they're dog friendly. And I've got to look at weight limits, right? Because even though most of the Hilton, I always go Hilton because I have their points. But most of the weight limits are fine for Kiki, but every once in a while, you know, you've got one. And then you've got the pet fees, and sometimes they're really exorbitant. So I'm sitting here and I'm frustrated because the other thing is Kiki eats fresh cooked food, and it has to be frozen, and it can't be unfrozen for more than 4 days. So what I was thinking I was going to get around this with was to just stay at like the Homewood Suites by Hilton, which we did actually on our Arizona trip. And they have full refrigerators with freezers, and that's great. I can just refreeze. I can put the food in a thermal bag in the cooler, and then I can freeze it every night and make sure it stays frozen. Except that the towns I want to go in don't have any of those options, and if they do, suddenly it's really expensive, and then it's got a huge pet fee. And then it occurred to me that for all the extra money in these hotels and their pet fees, I could buy 5 travel freezers that plug in my car. So I ended up buying one of those travel freezers, one of those mini portable freezers, to go in the element while we're on the road. Because of course these things exist because RVers and campers want them, right? They want a mini portable freezer that you can plug in anywhere, that you can just travel around. JSX, what's JSX? I'm assuming it's an airline, but I don't know what that stands for. Yeah, so then I looked into them, and like I could get a very good one for like between $200-300, which is a fraction. Like now I can stay in less expensive but still nice Hilton hotels with lower pet fees in the towns I want to go in, so I can space out my trip like the way I wanted to without doing 2 long days. Oh, okay. JSX. Let me make a note. Thanks for that. Trash. I'll look it up. Western Airline. It might work for going up to Seattle next year, maybe. If we go up to Seattle to see David's folks again, which probably will. But yeah, so... Right, exactly. Yeah, and people were talking about using it for like when their nearest place to get ice cream was like a half hour away, and they they couldn't do it, so they were like, you just get a freaking car freezer and just put it in the car freezer. Who knew? So now it's on the way, and it should arrive tomorrow. So I'll have this little car freezer that it weighs about 30 pounds, like, and so it'll be easy to pick up and easy to pour. It has handles, and it should easily fit all of Kiki's food. And also has a refrigerator section for drinks. I'm like, I'm excited. If this thing works, I'm going to be super psyched. Like, because, you guys know we do road trips. So I pointed out to David, this will be useful because it can be a freezer, but you can also just set it to be a fridge. So we just don't have to mess around with ice. Yeah, a lot of people were talking about getting it for their truck, Zachariah. Look around, because they've got both the wider flat ones, but they've also got tall ones that can go, like, if you don't have a center console, it can fit right in there. So I don't know how your truck is configured. But either way, you can find one that's usually the right height or size. Now, you can get really expensive ones. They can go over $1,000, but there seems to be a nice little sweet spot between $200 and $400. Yeah, it can be either a fridge or a freezer, and some of them have compartments where essentially if you put the compartment in, the section where the freezer compressor is, like essentially that section becomes your ice section, and then the other section stays a little bit warmer. You just plug it in. So essentially, it's got thick walls. At least the one I bought has thick walls. So just like a refrigerator, it will stay cold, or a freezer, it will stay cold because it's got cold things in it for a while. But you can also hook it up if you've got solar. So a lot of people use them in RVs and campers, right, Pendrake? So you can still plug them in, but when your engine is off, they're assuming that like you're at a hotel or you're somewhere where you have a power outlet that you can plug it in. So you get an AC cord for it. Most of them just come with the DC for the car. But you get an AC cord for it, and then you can plug it in anywhere. And I'm just going to be like, nice, nice. Got his from Costco? Yeah, I'm sure Costco gets like some pretty good options on that. You bet. Yeah, you take it to the hotel room, right? If you've got a camper. If you've got an RV, then, you've got a generator, and it'll just stay plugged in. If you don't have like a generator in your camper or your RV, you just take it into the hotel room. Bye! Bye, Agent Marvel. Yes, bye. I'll let you guys know how mine works, okay? Because, there's always reviews on all of these things that it only lasted for a month. You can find negative reviews on all of them. So I went and I got a decent brand, and I decided to just give it a try. So I've been to Costco, and I always forget to go. We have a membership that we almost never used. I actually need to go. Should go today, but I don't know if I have time. But yeah, so they won't let you in. It's not that cool. It's not that cool, Crows. Just, honestly, like, I forget to go. Uh-oh. But anyway, so that was my meltdown and my realization. Oh, so now I'll let you guys know, like, how my mini freezer looks and works when we get it. I'm excited. I'm ordering it enough in advance that if it does prove to be trash, I can look for a different one. Right, Kiki? This is for your food, so that Mommy doesn't have to stress. She's like, are you done yet? All right, it is now 11. I can end the stream. Minimum guilt. So there you go, folks. There you go. You have all now learned that mini portable freezers exist. Those of you who didn't already know. And mini portable refrigerators, often the same thing. So yeah, look at the fine print, figure out, make sure it says freezer and refrigerator if that's what you need. But anyway, yeah, it's super fun. And we got some leather on her. I'm liking her color scheme now. I'm like, with that warm leather, it does so much for her. Like, warm dark browns, guys, can do this for your model. Like, it just, I don't know why, but that color just slots in and makes everything more harmonious. I just don't know why it works, but it always works for me. So keep in mind, warm dark browns can be like a big harmonizer for your model. And of course, especially if you have blue on it. But it can also work, especially with this reddish one, it will work on green just fine. And it works with purple too. And of course, they're going to harmonize with yellow. There's nothing that they clash with. Nothing that they clash with warm dark browns. So even on gray. There will be Reaper Live tonight. Woo! All right. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow tomorrow I have to either start a new mini or I have to figure out, we're going to do some bricks. We're going to do bricks for Kathy. That's right. I need to find a base for her. And I need to figure out, I'm putting her up on a step. I don't know. I need to think about that. But anyway, so you're really late and we're leaving. Bye, Major. Yes, have a great day, everybody, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.